keys on real quickly here. I'm gonna start some music up for us live, so that there can be a little bit of music going on. What's that say? Wait, why is that doing that? That's sick. I'm not getting anybody in my lives anymore. Is this really gonna do this to me and it's not gonna work? Come on. Hello, Jenny. Hello, Misfit Everett Sanchez. I'm going to return to my talk about relic hominins. Why would it do that? I'm out here on my 5G phone in the front yard. Look at. Why would it do that? This is a dead spot, I guess. It's always been kind of a dead spot for the television, for the you just name it. Hey, Jethro. Oh, Everett Sanchez needs a mod, I see. I didn't even notice that for a second. And these, Everett, this is so that you can go around and hook up with everybody else here, you know, Rancho Relaxo, Jethro, Jenny. Subscribe to their channels. Leave them a quick comment and under a short maybe of theirs. You know, don't be gone for long from here. Just just tell them, hey, I'm busy being enthralled by WassamattaU's live right now, but I'll be back to check out more of your stuff later. Something like that, you know, something quick, easy, and then just get your bum back here, so you don't miss anything important. Right now, we're just getting prepped and ready to go here. I'm going to be talking about relic hominins and the myth of human evolution again. This time I'm not going to allow myself to get distracted by my talking about my toxic father or the police or any other thing, unless we see some coppers, of course. If you see coppers, we stop and we take care of this. We film. You know, we hope that they fart, sneeze, or cough, something. And we don't even need to hope. They're going to mess up. They're going to do something wrong. You just know it. Okay, so as we're getting ready here, hopefully, hey, four corners, fists in the air. Hey, I'm talking about relic hominins, aka sasquatch, Bigfoot, and the myth of human evolution. Hopefully, if that's anything at all interesting to you. So right now we're just getting prepped here. We're going to, oh, Stephanie Jenks, you get a mod too. Stephanie, this is you're getting modded so that you can go around and hook up with all the other people that are here. Leave them a quick message saying, hey, I'm at WassamattaU's lives with you right now, you know, or a comment under their shorts or whatever, and saying I'll be back to check out more of your stuff or whatever. Just subscribe to everybody. Everyone subscribe to everyone. Don't snipe each other off, please. And yeah, that's what that's for. So we're just getting ready here, and then we'll be talking about the relic hominins and aka Sasquatch, Bigfoot, and the myth of human evolution, why it's just not true, and where we might have come from. So anybody who is ready to partake with me here for just a second, and then we will get going. I've got some runts. I don't know if you have positive pokes. There you are. You get a mod. Positive pokes gets a mod. I know him. Everyone that I know well enough to trust, I'm gonna give a mod to, so that you guys can hook up with each other, get each other's channels. There should be a lot more of that going on in the YouTube world, and that's one of the ways that I've managed to bump up my subscribership recently. Is there are a few. There's a guy named John P. There's Daisy May. Squirrel Sniper, hey. Okay, you get added as a moderator. Well, I'm doing a similar thing here, Squirrel Sniper, as Daisy May and our friend Yogi do. And I'm just modding everybody so that they can go around and hook up with each other. And I'm talking about relic hominins, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, and the myth of human evolution, or I will be in just after a puff or two of my runts. A quick puff or two of my runs. I can't take a lot these days, so it's just going to be a quickie. I'm completely toasted after one or two hits nowadays. I'm getting dirty looks. Wah! Snow there. Where are you at, positive folks? Permanent marker. Oh boy. I love the smell. I love the smell of gasoline. When I was a kid, I was always sticking my head out of the window and at the gas station and inhaling all big. And my parents were like, "That means you're going to be an addict." And what do you know? They were right. No, just kidding. But yeah, I did like the smell of the gasoline quite a bit. Hey, Red Bull Princess, good to see you. I'll be talking about the Sasquatch Bigfoot here in a moment. I'm just prepping myself with a little bit of runts. I'm almost done, actually. Hopefully, all the people out there in YouTube WassamattaU land are also taking a quick second to get ready for their brains to ingest the Bigfoot Sasquatch mystery and getting ready with maybe a little bit of plant medicine help. I'm also watching for my sister. I'm going to let you guys meet my sister here too, but probably she's coming back from a ride in the jogger. A neighbor has very kindly offered to take her out on Sundays for a ride in her jogger, which is a great thing. She loves to go for a ride. And I also want to get a quick little bit of help from you guys here in the chat as well. I'm doing a project here on the corner of the property that I want to quickly show. I'm not going to get distracted from the Bigfoot Sasquatch thing, but just really quickly I'm going to show that, and I want to see if anybody has any ideas. Or are there any landscapers in here? All right, we're ready. We are ready to go. So, I've already spoken about how humans basically, in the fossil record, we just appeared all of a sudden looking absolutely nothing like anything that's come before us. The difference, here's the fact, is that there, in the so-called pre-human fossil record, there is not a single human bone in the entire pre-human fossil record, so-called pre-human fossil record, because it's not a pre-human fossil record. Those are not our ancestors. Those are the ancestors of the creatures that still live in the forests around us today. Oh man, what's that noise? I'll have to move. That's who they are the ancestors of. They're not our ancestors. And there is a missing link between, as I mentioned before, there is a missing link between them and us. Oh, that's too annoying. And it's such a giant gap that it would actually, the missing link would need 50 cousins on either side of them in about 50 million years to account for the differences between them and what they want to say is our ancestors in terms of evolutionary change, natural evolutionary change, which does happen. I'm not saying evolution doesn't happen. We've seen it happen, we know it happens, or at least natural selection happens. And evolution as well through mutation. But what I am saying is that's not how humans got here. Now there's a bunch of interesting theories for how it is that we, among the scientists who are honest enough to admit that we cannot have evolved, that the fossil record does not show a gradual evolution in humans at all. The ones that are honest about that, they'll admit that. Now there's all kinds of theories for how this could have happened among those type of scientists, such as the psychedelic ape theory. The psychedelic ape theory says that when humans left the jungles of the world and moved into the more grassy plain areas, they came across cow pies, essentially, water buffalo pies, whatever, what have you, wildebeest pies, probably. And they found edible mushrooms, easy calories. They ate these mushrooms, and something happened, and by eating those mushrooms, and that caused the brain to explode in growth. That's just one theory. There's also the water ape theory. None of these theories really work out at all when you begin to dig into them. the psychedelic ape theory, you know, it's got some merits and possible truth to it, but it really doesn't pan out. Definitely the water ape theory does not pan out. And that theory says that we evolved in the water, probably in brackish or fresh water along the coast, and that's how we lost our hair, and because we wanted buoyancy over strength against gravity. That's how come our bones became so much more fragile than, say, a hominins, and our muscles less strong, and so on and so forth. And that theory doesn't really pan out either. So regardless of what that truth is, we appeared on the planet and we pushed. At the time, there were hundreds and hundreds of species of these relic hominins, different what they want to call pre-humans, which are really not, other than some interbreeding. That we do have some of their genetics that way, but there were hundreds and hundreds of species of them on the planet, and we basically, because we have such a savage territorial imperative, I spoke about this already, we don't allow threats in our vicinity. And if you're another species, you don't want to compete with a human, you're going to lose. You're going to be an X species. If you compete with a human or you threaten a human, bad news. We're two-legged, vicious pack hyenas with a savage territorial imperative. We just won't tolerate it. We won't tolerate threats in our area. You know, if a bear or a dog or something, you know, takes out a human that's it. That's it for probably more than just that bear or that dog. I mean, heaven help any other bears or dogs that are in the neighborhood. Same with wolves, even though wolves don't generally have a tendency to attack people, and never have. Rarely have, I should say. Not never. They as well, you know, have been out of irrational fear hunted to extinction, and or because they competed with humans. They took our livestock. So that's one reason why most of these relic hominins can't mess with people's livestock. It happens. There's actually a plethora of videos online of people talking about or showing evidence of or video of these things coming in rural areas, harassing the property owners, banging on the windows, screaming at people, and yes, even taking the livestock. Now, they are smart though, and they generally tend to understand that if they do that what's the response is likely to be a heavily armed group of humans hunting them in the woods, which they can, if they're even next level smart, which many are, they can get away just because they're like Army Ranger, Navy SEAL, Jedi ninjas that have lived out there their entire life. They know it just like you know your backyard, your living room, your bedroom. They know every rock, leaf, twig, and they have brains that are much faster than ours. They think even a fully adrenalized human probably looks like it's moving in slow motion to a hominin, just like we do to a gorilla. And you can watch, look at this log. This is interesting. The last time that I looked at this thing, there was the most disgusting spider I've ever seen. I brought what do you know, I happen to have my flashlight. BP, be prepared. Look at this. We're gonna get a look up in this nasty log. Here we go. So they do, there's places where they are problem animals. Rural areas, small towns, where they're known, you know, everyone there knows it, but nobody likes to be called a liar. Nobody likes to be laughed at by the national media. Nobody likes, you know, especially a lot of these small rural people, town people, they don't want to be called a liar and looked at like that way. So they would rather just kind of laugh about it in private, knowing that they're correct and the rest of the Western world are fools. Hey, Mr. Bones. I hope you're doing okay, buddy. I sent you a couple messages. Oh man, that's terrible. Man, I hope that you can, hang in there, dude. Just, fuck, I mean, what can I say? Nothing really. other than my prayers are with you. Um, yeah. Wow, look at this. Look at this old tree too. Look at how big around this tree would have been. And I don't actually remember this tree being here, but I also don't remember a stump being here, so it must have been here. That's interesting because I have not quite a photographic memory, but no, I was an Indian scout, Jeff. Not quite a photographic memory, but close to it. And not quite an eidetic memory, but close to it. And gosh, if I don't... Oh, I do remember this tree now. Okay, actually, there was a tree here. That's right. This isn't the tree, though, obviously, that they cut down here. This is a deciduous on the ground here. And over here, this log that we were looking into, which I got distracted from. But yeah, Mr. Bones, I can't stop thinking about that. You gotta... I hope you take care of yourself. Yeah, I was an Indian scout, Jeff. Oh, okay, the chat hasn't moved. Okay, yeah, I was in Indian Scouts. It's basically the same as Boy Scouts. Very, very similar, at least. A little bit more hardcore, obviously, because it's, you know, Native Americans or whatever. But I don't think... I wasn't in Boy Scouts, so I can't honestly say how different it was or wasn't, but I think that it's a little different, but not much. I was a pretty, oh yeah, Mr. Bones, I know, they're trying to do you harm that way. That's why you're gonna have to just do, I know you know better than I do, just do your best to just let, I mean, there's absolutely zero good that's gonna come out of you stressing about that. What's gonna happen is what's gonna happen either way, whether you stress or not stress. But stressing is so detrimental to your health, and I know it's hard not to. I speak these words, but you know, I can't always follow them. But just do your best to not stress about those things. What's going to happen is what's going to happen, and stressing about it now can't help at all. It could hurt. Can't help. Anyways, I hope that things work out for you. I hate what they're doing to you. That's just this. Why would the United States government do that sort of thing to its own people? It's ridiculous. It's gotten so out of control what they did to retaliate against me because they couldn't successfully prosecute me for growing a plant. So they just ruined my life, railroading me on these DUIs. Just boom, boom, right in a row. Clean UA, doesn't matter. I go to my trial 8 times. They're not ready. By that time, they seized all my assets. I got no money to frickin' defend myself. I got a public pretender who's on their side, who's working for them. Anyways, I said I wasn't gonna get distracted, so I hate what they're doing to you, Mr. Bones. I really do. It brings up exactly the kind of things they've done to me. And yeah, at least I'm not going through it right now. You are. That's just awful. Bastards. Anyways, so the relic hominins, they know better than to... Generally, they know better than to harass us because it's going to mean a response of a lot of armed men, highly trained, armed men who can operate in the wilderness, unlike most of us who cannot really. And it's only in recent years where we've even had weapons powerful enough and people with enough skills and technology to really reliably be able to even go out and take care of these things. We could get in battles with skirmishes and battles with them and drive them off for the most part. Occasionally kill one here or there, but if you're out there having a fight with these things, anywhere from 50, even 50 years ago when we had the type of calibers of pew-pews that could actually take one of these things down, even then it's still, you're in their territory, you're in their house. They are so much stronger and faster than you. Even with high caliber weapons, people usually end up losing in the end, or they maybe get 1 or 2 and are just lucky to get out of there alive. We are so inferior to them, physically speaking, and mentally. It's not just their speed that's much further, their brain that's much faster than ours. It's also that they have tactical ability. It's something that we don't really have in any significant amounts to where we could even know what we are missing compared to what they have. But when you get an idea of the kind of tactical superiority that not only Sasquatch, but gorillas, chimpanzees, monkeys. If you watch footage, a monkey can sit there and swing back and forth and tap a jaguar on the butt and on the head and over without getting caught. A jaguar that wants to eat it and will eat it. And you can watch footage of these monkeys just messing with them. That's how fast they are. And if you understand how fast cats are compared to humans, it's just not even a comparison. And yet primates are something on a whole nother level, except for us, because we're not really primates, but I'm getting to that. And so I'm bringing this up because about the small towns and all this and that, because it just goes back to the beginning where we wanted these primo ecological niches. In fact, we need them. They're the only places we can live, as I already explained. The only places where we can hack it. We don't allow threats, competition, etc. And so we drove them into these secondary niches, which some of them already lived in those niches anyways, because they can. And they're equipped for a full range. Almost, Yetis don't live in the snow. That's a myth. Generally, they're not white. I've heard of one account of a white Yeti. Every other account that I've ever heard of a Yeti was brown, black, or red. Everyone. So, the reason being, there's a number of white Sasquatches that have been filmed and eyewitnesses have seen in the United States, and probably in the Eurasian continent, I would assume, as well. Maybe not. But not only that, there was also what they called the sugar flat alien. It was a head of one of these creatures. This guy and his wife were up at a Lover's Lane like place in New York. I think it is. I believe it's in New York. It's on a road called Sugar Flat, and it's just kind of a known Lover's Lane like place where people go up to do naughty things. And this guy and this woman that were up there were both married to other people, and they were up there fooling around till later than they wanted to be. And so they head down the mountain, and he's speeding he's going real fast on this little tiny road down the mountain, and he ends up hitting and unaliving a white hair-covered creature that he thinks is an alien. He doesn't understand what's going on. So apparently there's a second one there as well, although he was under the distinct impression of the second one was a female because it had really higher, or he didn't hear the first one, but it had high-pitched squealing, and I don't know if he saw her or not. Pretty sure he said she was just right on the other side of a layer of leaves, but he couldn't get a good look at her, and that's the way it is with these things. But or was that a different case? Well, it doesn't really matter. He had the distinct impression that it was a female that was there with this male, and that may be one of the reasons why she didn't take away the body, because the guy went home and dropped that woman off, went home, couldn't handle, because this thing was on two legs. So he's sitting there half thinking, I ran over a person, and he starts drinking. Let me take a look at see here. What are called bears, Terry? Tell me. And so he starts drinking, and he ends up going in his truck back to the spot where he hit this thing. With a shovel was all he had in the back of his truck, in the bed of his truck, and he cut the head of the thing off with a shovel. He proceeded to have it taxidermied. And then it sat in a little touristy shop somewhere there near Sugar Flat Road, labeled the Sugar Flat Alien for years and years. No one even knows what happened to it. It just disappeared a couple of years ago. Nobody knows where it went, apparently, so far. And it is the head of a Sasquatch, though, and I can point you to a video. I'll post it after this. I'll point you to a video of a capture. It's called the Pennsylvania white Sasquatch, and the measurements on its face are 100% non-human. It can't be a mask unless it had somebody with pneumatic cables standing behind the actor working the pneumatic cables and whatnot. But the thing then immediately goes sprinting off in the I'm talking pitch black in the woods without hardly making any noise, let alone running into trees and stuff like any human would. And anyways, the facial measurements of this thing, while they are non-human, they perfectly match the Sugar Flat Road aliens features. And it's it's got white hair all over it. So you can Google this thing and you'll see what I mean. And look for the Thinker Thunker video. And I believe that if you're a reasonable person, after watching that video, you will acknowledge that it's almost a certainty that the Sugar Flat Road alien was a white Sasquatch, just like the one in the Pennsylvania white footage, as well as a few others that he points to and does the measurements on. And so, oh boy, I did lose track of my thinking here for a second. Oh, well, anyways, I got a little bit sidetracked there with the Sugar Flat Road alien. I was talking about why these creatures know better and then on the primary ecological niches that we need and they have, and chasing them into the secondary ecological niches. Okay, so let me switch gears a little bit here and talk about how come I'm looking at the chat here too. Okay. I'm going to talk a little bit about why humans are not evolved on this planet. If you look at, there are a full 13 human genetic disorders that will unalive you before you reach sexual maturity. So tell me, that being the case, what are they doing in the gene pool? And what are any of the you don't see genetic disorders in the wild. You might see a two-headed snake or, something like that. But that's just a malfunction of mitosis process, which is an incredibly complex process. It's an absolute miracle that it goes correctly as often as it does. Other than that, you'll see a couple rare things like albinism, which don't tend to hurt the species. And that individual it can make certain individuals, certain species, like a bigger target or whatever, and give them a disadvantage. But the ones that you see that grow to adulthood and spread their genes on, they're doing just fine, obviously. And so anyways, you don't see, there are none of these, other than a few things that, like I said, that are not disadvantage to the species. Otherwise, when genetic defects are born in the wild, and I'm sad to say this, but the parents instinctively of almost every species on the planet that cares for its young will know instinctively to stomp out that mutation, and if not, eat it. And that's just the harsh reality of nature. Part of what they've evolved to be a successful species, almost every species will have evolved that feature. Otherwise, they probably aren't a successful species that's still alive now. So it makes perfect sense. It's harsh, but it makes perfect sense. But so you don't see that in nature. You see it in one other place, which is our domesticated animals, which, by the way, same thing. They just seem to appear out of nowhere, looking nothing like whatever came before. For example, the wheat, most all of our crops, our domesticated crops, wheat, corn. If you look at their ancestors, they literally had seeds like the size of poppy seeds, and in sometimes cases smaller. And so what scientists are trying to tell you, the story they're trying to tell you is that some caveman was so smart that he knew to pick out these precursor plants to our domesticated plants and animals. Same thing with the animals. He was so smart. Not only, and he took them back to his cave and he planted these plants every year, and he carefully selected for the most desirable traits, the biggest little seeds, whatever, bug resistance, whatever. And not only did he do this for no return reward while he's trying to feed himself and avoid getting eaten by a saber-toothed tiger, but he also convinced 20 generations of his children to do that, until we ended up with these domesticated plants that we see here now. It's not true. And garbage piles, that can't do that. That can't do that type of long-term selective breeding. That can't accomplish that either. So it's just not true. It's absurd, actually. And then you got to think of, like, the precursor of a cow isn't a rook. Okay, and a rook was a monstrosity of a beast that stood about 6 feet tall at the front shoulder, and if not up to like a dozen feet tall at the front shoulder. This was a gigantor. You look at cave paintings, it was a gigantor. How did we domesticate those and turn them into cows? And where are the intermediate species? Those should be some of the fossils we find the most, because they would be in an area where they would end up buried. I spoke before of how difficult it is and how rare it is for a fossil to be made unless something's deliberately buried. That helps immensely. And so these intermediate species that we should be finding them where we had halfway corn. But then that doesn't make sense, because halfway corn isn't a crop that's going to give people enough to make it worth their while, so they're not going to grow it. Do you see the problem here? Do you see the problem here? It doesn't matter how you attack it logically. We were given these species overnight. They appear overnight, just like we do. There's no sane way to argue otherwise. And, you know, with that, with the genetic tampering that they went through and we went through, which that's what we apparently are, is a hybrid between Sasquatch creatures or a precursor of the Sasquatch and what appears to possibly be an alien, I don't know, something that doesn't match anything in GenBank. And the Sasquatch actually have a similar profile, which is why it makes me wonder if we weren't both just created by the same whatevers at the same time. I don't know the answer to that. Apparently, if so, we were created from some of the same, one side of the same thing. Now, that would explain also why our DNA has been dropped from 48 base pairs to 46 base pairs. And in fact, it basically talks about that, all of this, in the Sumerian story. The supposedly the first people to invent writing and many of the first of civilizations, and they're talking about DNA and genetics, and they're doing things like talking about Uranus and Neptune being the blue-green watery twins, when we didn't even know about the existence of Uranus and Neptune until like 1870, and we didn't know that they were blue-green in color. Everybody assumed, until the Hubble telescope went up in 1970 or 71, everyone assumed that they were going to look just like Jupiter and Saturn, or some combination thereof. Nobody expected them to be green or blue, unless they were somebody who recognized the wisdom of the Sumerians. And there's literally so many little clues like that, and they're always correct, proven, and they've never been proven wrong, meaning they've been written down for 6,000 years now. Whenever we discovered them, 150 years ago, 50 years ago, however long a given bit of their writing was, since then our science has caught up to where it's able to confirm these things, and it just keeps on confirming them all without
I haven't heard of any significant sounding deviation from any new science that would cause a significant deviation from what the Sumerians have claimed about us. I haven't seen it, and I don't subscribe to a whole bunch of science journals and this and that. I'm just a little bit more interested and informed about this stuff than the average person. I just seek out knowledge about it. So I'm not perfect. I don't know everything. Take anything I say with a grain of salt. There are no experts on this subject. There's only, and I haven't even been boots in the ground out in the field because of my illness. I can't. So a lot of people will say, hey, don't listen to that guy at all. He ain't even been out there. I think that, personally, I think that's a mistake, because I spent the last 20 years just doing a deep dive, like a major league deep dive on these things. And ever since I saw the first video proof that they had to be real. And then once you actually acknowledge any of the proofs, you start looking at the other so-called evidence and unaccepted truths, and you just go, my goodness, how could I have thought that wasn't proof? Like the track evidence, for example. It's silliness. Of course they're real, but anyways, so there's not these genetic, we were created basically, and as were our domesticated plants and animals. They were given to us clearly, and so all of this indicates that there was a tinkering. Oh yes, and I was talking about how our base pairs were dropped from 48 to 46 base pairs of DNA, and the second and third base pair are very cleverly fused together in a way that allows them to continue to perform their desired function. And also then they sealed off the where they attached the two base pairs. They capped that off with telomere caps, which drops our lifespan from probably around 260 maybe as a maximum lifespan down to where it is, which is about 100 or 90 maximum, something like that. 105, 130 I guess is sometimes very rarely achievable by some. Speaking of which, sometime I'll talk about the true fountain of youth, and that being the coca plant and not a actual water fountain. It's a mistranslation. It's a fascinating theory of mine. Anyways, so yeah, that's an explanation for why we have a different number of base pairs of DNA than all other primates. Because in order to achieve mitosis, in order to make a hybrid, you have to have the same number of base pairs or it's not going to fly. And obviously whatever being was hybridized with a hominin from this planet, or some kind of a closely related hominin species, I don't know, one was picked obviously, or created and then picked, I don't know, but whatever the case, and in order to achieve mitosis with that, they had to have the same number of base pairs, so you had to drop it down by 2, and they very cleverly did that in that way that I talked about. Then they also put these telomere caps on there that lowered our lifespan, and it also blocks us off from our full potential, which you can see what our full potential is by looking at savants. Savants are a fascinating phenomenon. Somebody gets hit in the head with a baseball, or they fall down the stairs and bump their head or whatever, or they get damaged in utero, so they're born, or is that the word for it, during childbirth, whatever, or in utero I guess, and so that they come out like with these abilities. And what those abilities are the true potential that you have in you, but that you're blocked off from, very deliberately so. Because if you have a slave that's, I've said this before, if your slave is anywhere near as smart, creative, and intelligent as you are, it's not going to be your slave for very long. Whether it revolts through violence or logic and argumentation or whatever, debate, you're not going to have a happy slave if it's a smart slave. And so that's why you're blocked off from all that potential. Now, you look at what is that potential. Well, savants are people who you see who can be like human calculators, and they, you know, you can spit any equation at them and they can just do it. Bam. Now remember, a lot of times these are people who just had a head injury and never had these abilities before that they knew of. Or they're people who can look at a masterpiece, classic painting, Da Vinci or whatever, and they can glance at it once, and then they can reproduce it stroke for stroke on another canvas perfectly. Or they can pick up any musical instrument for the first time and play it beautifully. Or whatever. There's a number of different versions of it. And what you're seeing there, now how can that happen from a head injury? Consider that. How can a head injury give you the equivalent of a vastly greater intelligence and years of education? It can't, obviously. It that's silly. No, there's no bruising that's ever going to do anything like that. You're not going to. But what happens is, it's almost like Cato's play. What's the word that I'm looking for? Not analogy, but I guess analogy. There's another word for it. That I'm doing this a lot lately. It's bugging me. Anyways, allegory. The cave allegory. Gosh, that annoys me when that happens. You are basically seeing the shadows dancing on the wall, but what's really going on behind you outside in the light of day is something that's really completely different. And basically, it's almost like this damage that happens. There's a wall, the wall there in the cave or whatever gets a hole punched in it, and light shines through. And wherever it lands, whether it lands on like your, you know, musically creative part of you or mathematically part of you, whatever, that's what you then suddenly have, this little ray of light that hits that and activates that. If you didn't have those capabilities, if everybody didn't have those capabilities, this couldn't happen. This phenomenon couldn't happen. So that just shows you what your true magnificent potentials are. All of that's inside of you. It is. Think about it. Savants could not happen if that was not the case. And there's a whole lot of other evidence for the same assertion. So it's not just the savants, but I mean, the savants is an awfully rock solid good one. Miss Constitutional Rights, say you get modded. And that's so that you can go around and subscribe to everybody. I'm gonna look for a second. Let me make a marker of where I'm leaving off here. Oh, about your potential. Okay, boom, I'm marking it off right there. I'm gonna look at the chat a little bit here. Hey Oklahoma Outlaw Audits. Okay, you get a mod as well. Go around and subscribe to everyone, please. And hopefully they will also do the same. Leave them a comment and a like on a short. Let them know you were there. You returned because you're just enthralled with what Matt is saying. I make that tired joke every time. But I'm going to continue because I act like that. Okay? And yeah, leave them a like and subscribe. Let them know you're there. Come on back. Don't snipe each other out. Hey, End All Immunity. Hey, Roadhawk Kennel. Good to see you. Mr. Bones. Jeff. Excellent. Ryan Labs. Hey, Ryan Labs, I heard that you had been speaking to USA Inc. A bit or whatever. Now, I don't know if I was correct or incorrect about there being a Chevy song about you before, but now there are like 2 or 3. I think there's 3 or 4 even now. And they're going to be the newest in Chevy shorts area. You got to get in Chevy shorts. They're going to be the newest. He's pumping out like 5. You're gonna have to look a little bit, but it's close. It's gonna be close to the beginning. Let's see here. I'm looking for any questions or anything like that. You got that there? Ryan Labs, are you there? Hopefully. Did Ryan Labs get bored and leave? Okay, I don't see any immediate questions. I'm looking.
I don't see any. Okay. Okay, I don't see. The Hubble telescope was launched in 1970, not 1990, I'm pretty sure. Wasn't it, Ryan Labs? Am I crazy? Yeah, it was 1970. Or am I thinking of a different telescope? I could be, you know, hey, if I'm wrong, mark your calendar. It doesn't happen too often. Set your watch by it, whatever. I guess that doesn't make much sense, but whatever. Have I ever tried acorn pancakes? Is that a question for me? How do I feel about 31 Atlas? How do I feel about 31 Atlas? Is that anomaly flying through our solar system right now? I can't remember what that is. I'm having a brain fart. Oh man, that kind of thing bothers me. That's been happening to me lately. Ryan Labs, you taking off? Did you hear what I said about your Chevy songs? 31 Atlas. Can somebody quickly give me a anti-brain gas pill here in the chat about what 30? Okay, it is that anomaly flying through our system. How do I feel about it? I feel like it's clearly, just from the relatively minor amount of education that I've information that I've sought out about it, it's clearly not just a comet. It's not acting like a comet in any way, shape, or form. And it's got just, I mean, I can't even remember has the trajectory slowed or changed in a unusual way for a long kind of orbit. I believe it has, but I'm not educated enough to speak about this. I do remember that other one that came through. I definitely knew a little more about that, even though I'm blanking on the friggin' name of it now, but but yeah, I didn't believe that was just a piece of space debris from outside of the solar system. Outside of the solar system. Wait till they see something from extra. Are those supposed to be extra galactic? No, they're extra solar system. Okay, duh. Okay, so I left off with where I don't see any questions, so it is changing directions and is heading to Earth while giving off radio. Okay, so if all that is true, then I feel like it's obviously intelligently controlled. I mean, I don't assume things like there's no extraterrestrial beings, there's no spaceships, there's no whatever. I don't ever start with that as a premise. So when I see something that's doing things that are impossible for just a natural object, I'm going to go with the belief that it's not a natural object, because I don't start with that false premise, that completely unfounded premise that there are no Sasquatch, or there are no aliens, or there are no this or that. I don't know crap. Even what I'm telling you is it might be less BS than a lot of people will tell you, but it's still, anyone that you're listening to, it's 99.999% BS. But you just got to take it all in if you find it interesting, and then take what you will and leave the rest behind. But it's good to file stuff away for later, because you may not accept something right now, but later on you might find that you've changed your mind, and the tidbit of information might be just the key for some profound thought or profound idea that you're having. You just never know. So take what you will, leave the rest behind, but file it away for a rainy day. You never know. And no matter how, there was a time when, excuse me, I know that's gross, but it's better than being snotty. So there was a time when I would have said, pshaw, there's no God, there's no afterlife, blah 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 blah. Now I'm fully believe that there has to be. So you just never, I mean, I was raised in an atheist household, at least agnostic, if not atheist. Atheist, at least on my mom's side. And
I went to the university for whatever, 8 years plus. So yeah, I didn't have a lot of exposure to alternative ideas to the mainstream science one. And it really kind of pissed me off once I started actually realizing the full extent of the lies that we swim in. I don't know, I don't know if humans truly can't take the truth, or if the reality is just the people who have control of the truth believe that people can't take the truth, and they just do all this, but we are just swimming in such blatant lies. All of our culture and our politics, it's all corrupted and full of lies, nonsense. And so when we assume this guy's crazy, that he thinks that there's these creatures in the woods, or that this rock in space is actually a ship, you have no foundation for that, and all the evidence is saying that guy's right. The only thing that you have to take that position opposing him and scoff at him is your own unfounded belief that there's no such thing. You have no way of knowing if there's any such thing. How do you know that? I mean, it's a very unwise way to operate if you think that way. It's okay to be skeptical. It's healthy to be somewhat skeptical about things, you know. You don't want to just buy everything you hear. But you know, when you don't want to start with these presumptions that you can't back up with any evidence, and that includes like proving negatives. I can hardly believe it, but I will come on the record right now and say there are people that do magic in this world, real magic. I don't know what it really is, but I'm talking about not illusions, real things that appear to be magic. They may have a scientific explanation, they probably do, but it's something far beyond what anyone's offering at the moment. And these creatures appear to, so many eyewitnesses too say that they, so, you know, that's a whole nother level of it, is that I continue to be arrogant and wrong, I believe now. When I came to believe that, and understand that, these creatures do exist, and now I understand that that's a fact, but then I still wanted to stay arrogant and be like, well, I don't believe in all this flute playing, people in the woods playing flutes with a Sasquatch and them going in and out of portals and blah 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 blah. Now, when you've listened to eyewitness reports, people who clearly don't know each other from, you know, their reports are spaced out in time and they come from different sources. I mean, it's just not the idea that all of these people somehow know each other and are conspiring. That's far more ridiculous than just believing that these things exist, because that's what would have to be happening. You would have to have basically a multi-generational group of hoaxers with almost unlimited resources to run around the planet with gorilla costumes and fake footprints that they somehow stamp into the ground in remote areas where it's unlikely that anyone's even going to find them. You know, it's a miracle that anyone even finds them. And you can't get heavy machinery back there. Well, how did you stamp it into the ground? Because if you're a skeptic and you believe that that tracks are easy to fake, I dare you to go try and fake some. You can't do it, because in really soft medium, yes, obviously. But in a lot of these cases, these track finds that have been documented, they're in a medium where it takes a certain number of thousands of pounds per square inch or whatever, or hundreds of pounds, say, a square inch or whatever, to impress these prints in the ground. And it's out in the middle of nowhere, next to a creek or whatever, you know, just there's no feasible way that they got machinery in there. And again, it would have had to have been multiple generations, thousands of people running around the planet, making these fake tracks and causing these fake sightings with their costumes. And it's just absurd. It's absolutely absurd. These are the testimonies of people who their testimony would put somebody in the electric chair. So just stop it. It's silly not to take, a lot of times you talk to somebody, I'll talk to somebody and they'll be like, oh, I don't believe in those. And oh no, my family doesn't believe in those. Or I'll say, well, no one in your family has had any experiences or anything. They say, well, my family doesn't believe in those, although, our Uncle Bob, he claims he saw one time. And I'll say to them something like, okay, so I got you. Uncle Bob's a real, known liar then. And they'll say, no, Uncle Bob's a good guy, but we don't believe that he saw a Sasquatch. And it's just like, listen to yourself, And that's one of the reasons why people often don't ever talk about it if they have such a sighting. And so that's a whole nother category of people that are certainly out there. If you have all of these people who talk about it, even if it's a hoax, even if it's people in costumes or whatever that are so good that they scare the pee out of people, nonetheless, even with the hoaxes, even with them being hoaxes, you would still have a huge number of people who would never talk about it because they wouldn't want to be called crazy. And they don't think that what they saw was a costume or could have been a costume. They feel like it's an animal. And they don't want to be called crazy or whatever. So even if you go with the hoax route, you still got to acknowledge there's going to be a very slim percentage of people who come out and make a point of talking about this. And then they talk about it for years and their story never wavers and they never make a dollar off it 99.9% of the time. If anything, a lot of times they suffer negative consequences. And, it's just like, where do you even start? Now it's easier with online Facebook groups and YouTubers and whatnot, but especially just a few years ago, it was like, where do you go if you even have one of these sightings? So you got to imagine, realistically, it could be more like 1 in 100 or 1 in 200 people on average who talk about these sightings, at least on a public level, beyond just like maybe 1 or 2 or 3 of their family members or whatever, to where the information would get out and others would hear it. So that being the case, even if these are hoaxes, considering the low percentage of people who are going to come forward and talk about it, just think about how 20,000 Bigfoot reports in a year in North America or whatever. I don't know what the number is. I have to look it up. It may not be that much, but if you have thousands of Bigfoot sightings in a year, and then you got to imagine that's 100 people who see them, even if they're hoaxes, that's a lot of jokers out there pulling hoaxes and really never getting found out, never getting caught. They're doing all kinds of impossible stuff, like leaving impossible. You have to do a tricky thing where you have a larger version of it and you shrink it down. But anyways, making video clips here and there with people they're doing all this stuff to fake this. That's just absurd. Of course they're real. Of course they're real. Anyone who continues to not believe so either just hasn't had enough exposure yet, or they're just completely, their mind is so shut off to anything that they think that they know right now, to any kind of new revelation or learning. Sorry for that person. They're gypping themselves. More than a few people that I have introduced this Sasquatch subject to have gone completely down the rabbit hole after me. They just love it, they're just enthralled by it, because it is, if this was acknowledged publicly by the government, it would be the most fascinating revelation subject for so many people. It would change the world drastically. It's one of the reasons why it's not publicly acknowledged. One of the multiple reasons. Frankly, I've come to the conclusion that the damn things are probably safer without us acknowledging their existence. I don't know, it depends on how much more of the wilderness we continue to cut down. If we're going to go at this rate without ever stopping, well then they're in more danger then, because they're just not going to have anywhere left to live. Whatever. So, I'm probably not going to continue this too much longer here today, but I've covered a lot of stuff. Let me think if there's anything, last little bits related to this part of the subject that I want to get out there. I was talking about how each person has this special potential inside of them, and I wouldn't recommend hitting yourself in the head to try to unlock this potential. You might cross your fingers and hope for the type of head injury that accomplishes that for you. So all of a sudden you can pick up any musical instrument and just play it, or you're a human calculator or whatever. But yeah, think about that. Think about the savants. Think about what I said about the genetic disorders and how can they be in the gene pool when they will unalive you before you reach sexual maturity. That just doesn't even make sense. And then there's also a number of other clues, such as our walk, that I already talked about pretty in depth, and how messed up it is. But the thing about it is when you're making a slave, you don't care if 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 10,000 or 1 in 100,000 is going to be born with this genetic disorder that is so horrific for it, and it's going to cut its lifespan. You don't care about that. And when you're cutting DNA, it's not something that you can do with the sharpest razor blade or even a laser. You have to cut it chemically. That's the only way to cut. And it's not a precise science. And it probably will always be somewhat of an imprecise science. It's just too, or at least for now, maybe AI will be able to figure it out for us. But it makes sense that even someone who had the power to come here and create us, they wouldn't have maybe wanted to put the resources and time, even if they had the capability, which they may not have had, to make us, just perfectly healthy, all that. And again, it's not to their advantage to do that sort of thing when you're making a slave. Yeah, you don't want one that's constantly going to be sickly and no good for working or reproducing or whatever. But you don't want them to be too strong, too smart, too healthy all the time, not reliant on your medicine, not reliant on your food. Because the minute that they feel independent, they probably had some inkling of the combination of some type of hominin or primate species from the planet Earth here, and their own will, their own type of strength of will and whatnot. They probably had some inkling that humans would be one of a species that's not built to stand with enslavement without plotting to escape it and overcome it. We do that sort of thing, and they probably had an inkling that was. They probably, imagine if we even had a small amount of that greater potential of ours, how much that would magnify that. We wouldn't allow anyone to enslave. Now, we unfortunately very foolishly allow people to enslave us with our consent. Everyone who basically loves one side or the other of the political spectrum, and the candidates on that side, or the politicians on that side, and actually believes that those are good people and supports them, maybe even sends them money, but we generally don't take too well to an outright enslavement scenario. We just beg for it in every other way to happen to us in gradual increments. Apparently that seems to be what we're doomed to do. I don't see, we're not even beginning to change directions, and I'm switching up on topics here a little bit just because this is the end, close to the end, but we're not even beginning to make any kind of changes that in our direction in the world that would indicate that we are going to fix anything. We're just not even. It's a joke even, the idea is a joke that we've done anything at all. We've done nothing. God, and I've lost my lighter. I can't believe it. I was out walking around. I should believe it because I do this kind of thing too often. I lost it. Yep. What do you know? No having a goodbye smoke, I guess. That's all right. I don't need it. It's unhealthy. It doesn't look like we're changing directions at all. So, oh, I found it. And look at me while I light up a cigarette. You know, I'm the same kind of fool, making my own doom here. So don't listen to me and think that I'm holier than thou. And I have scleroderma, and my lungs are severely scarred over from scleroderma. So I'm doubly stupid. Probably. Actually, the doctor told me it probably doesn't make a difference. I must admit, the doctor did say it probably will not make a difference. Although they didn't expect me to be for more than another like 6 months to a year and a half at that time, though. They were shocked that I was alive at that time. So whatever. Maybe now it might be a good idea, now that I've actually lived, it might be a good idea not to smoke. But that's my point, is that humans are doomed. We're not, you know, we're not changing. We're all driving towards a giant cement wall at 110 miles an hour in a little 1990 Volkswagen Jetta, and nobody's saying, and nobody's saying anything, and nobody's, you know, putting on the brakes or suggesting the brakes even. Nobody's even really raising the alarm, or very few people are. The ones that do just get drowned out and smacked down by everyone else. So I don't see us, maybe, you know, maybe there'll be an alien intervention, or maybe, you know, all of this stuff is tied together. Like it or not, believe it or not, the politics, the apparent struggle in the world today that looks like a epic battle between good and evil, that, you know, unlike, really, pretty much unlike most anything since World War II, maybe. And I don't even know that, I don't even have nearly as black and white of a viewpoint of that anymore. But there definitely appears to be a spiritual war going on right now. I just don't see how that's that's just an almost inescapable conclusion from observation. There's some kind of, whether it's all made up and there's nothing in the world supernatural or whatever, or it is being prompted by supernatural forces. Either way, it's happening. There's a theater of it. If it's not really happening, there's a theater that it's happening, one way or another. So I tend to accept that, hey, this is actually happening. I mean, I don't want to be fooled either, but, you know, there's only so much that you can deny. And yeah, I just don't know. I don't have the answers any more than anyone else. But maybe, I know what I was saying, is that it's all tied together. Maybe Sasquatch, maybe aliens will intervene. Maybe, you know, there have been people who have claimed to have conversations with Sasquatch that seem pretty credible, a few of them. And some of the stuff they say is pretty interesting. So, you know, you can seek out stuff like that on your own. I'm going to start posting a little bit more links to things on my channel here that have to do with Sasquatch, Dogman. I already posted that episode of Dogman Encounters that I would like anyone who's skeptical of the existence of Dogman to go and listen to. It's just an encounter by a man who's, you know, I believe that it's a fascinating encounter, and I believe that the man sounds extremely truthful. And then when you stop after that and think, okay, he's either truthful or he's like one of the best actors on the planet, and he's got this amazing story that he doesn't skip or stutter or vary on ever. Then you got to think, well, now there's also hundreds of thousands of people or tens of thousands of people out there that are making similar claims, and they're just as sincere and honest and consistent. Anyways, that's just a side note. But yeah, go and check out that Dogman Encounters that I posted. I believe it's episode 197 or 207. Oh man. Anyways, you'll see it. I shared it on my channel. So I'm gonna start sharing more and more of really good links. Okay, I'm gonna share, for example, some blow-ups from the frames of the Patterson-Gimlin film, Patty. These are blown up so far. The technology has gotten so good. That's the thing about film and the Patterson-Gimlin film, is that it's not a digital film. It's on real film, and with real film, you've got all the information is there. It's just that you have to get better and better. You get better and better technology that allows you to to extract that information from the film. But the information is there. It's not there from a digital image because you get down to a point where you're at pixels. So that's why the Patterson-Gimlin film is so valuable. And now we've gotten technology where we can blow her face up from that film, which you may have seen the jumpy, blurry looking versions of it that are copies of copies of copies. There are first generation copies that some of these analysts have managed to get from the widow Patterson. And they're crystal clear images. There's nothing blurry about them. They're phenomenal. And the film is not nearly as bad as most versions you've probably seen of it. It's actually quite a valuable, clear film. And now we've got the technology to blow up images of Patty's face so far that we can see pimples and individual hairs growing from moles and details like that. And I'm going to put links up to those blown up images. They've been analyzed and proven. The technique that was used to create them was reproduced, because there were questions like, is this just an AI generated idea of what the AI thinks this blown up image would look like? No, they reproduced the process just to prove that no, this is not AI, it's just a very blown up version. Now, we've been able to blow it up that much and still we can't see zippers. We can't see, nothing looks like a costume. There's no odd wrinkles on top of all the bulging, moving, flexing muscles. We can look at pimples and moles, and I'm sorry if you think that that's somehow fake. I just don't know how to help you. I honestly don't. Anyways, my point that I was saying is that I'm going to start posting more links to stuff like that, and those are some of the next ones I'm going to post here, or share or whatever. I'm not even sure where things go when I share them on my channel. I'll have to look into this. But does it go into my little community thing there? Anyways, I'm going to be doing more and more of that, and those are going to be the next ones that I put up for y'all. And I will come back and talk about the subject more sometime in the near future. I'm going to finally put an end to this train wreck. Like I said, I was going to do here a number of minutes ago. Thank you all for joining me. I very much appreciate every last one of you. Love you all. I see Dad still here. Brandon F. and Mitchell is still here. Love these people. End all immunity. Much love. Miss Daisy May. Hey, Miss Daisy May. Good to see you. If you're still here, which I know you tend to flit in and out of places, if you are still here, then you are in the Just a Yogi on YouTube's song video. It's under my full-length videos. I had told you that you were in one of the videos, but I didn't specify that, and I think you went to the shorts and probably didn't see yourself there. So anyways, you're in the full-length song video for the full-length song Just a Yogi on YouTube, or Just a Yogi on YouTube, I mean, and or one of the two. Anyways, that's where you appear. You and your little dog. Anyways, good to see you that you came in here. Thanks everyone. Did I miss anybody who's still here right now? Jeff, I said. Mr. Bones is still here. Love to Mr. Bones. Everyone, put in your strong Brent Shimko. He's a very likable guy. Everyone, put in your full prayers for Mr. Bones, please. They're really doing him dirty, and it's causing him a lot of stress. And they've just done. He's already talked about it so in public. So I know there's no problem with me mentioning some of the. They threw him in jail and didn't give him his correct medication and caused him to have serious heart complications and mini stroke that took part of his vision. And they're trying to, use the process as punishment to basically unalive him. And everyone, please keep him in your prayers. Send him your strongest energy, all that good stuff. Life is life. I wish there was a way, something that we could do against these people. Well, we are doing it, you know. And keep forgiveness in your heart as much as you can. I know it's hard. It's very difficult with these villains. But, you know, when you forgive them, that's for you. That's not for them. That's only for you. It's in no way for them. They're not affected by your ire and contempt. At least not ire and contempt that lingers in your private time and intrudes on your thoughts and sours your person, which it will. I could understand while you're in their presence, you know, yeah, I show them nothing but contempt myself, but, or at least not to a level where any viewers of the video is going to look and be like, that guy's a jerk. But, you know, inevitably they almost never give respect, and so it's easy to just hand back what they give you. But yeah, anyways, forgiveness. Try your best. It's very hard, I know. And with that, I'm going to end this with that tidbit of Wazza wisdom. I'm going to end this. Now you know, and knowing is half the battle. Drugs are bad. All those things, all those little slogans. This is your brain. This is your brain on rugs. Any question? Persian rugs. All right. Good night, everyone. Thanks for coming. I really appreciate it.